The smartest people you know are disappearing. Here's what they figured out. Have you noticed something strange happening? The people you used to consider the sharpest minds in your circle are becoming harder to find online. They're not posting. They're not scrolling. They're not engaging. And it's not because they're too busy or too old to understand technology. It's because they've figured something out that most people haven't. Something the platforms desperately don't want you to know. This isn't about being a Luddite or rejecting progress. This is about understanding what's happening to your brain every single time you open these apps. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let me start with a question. When was the last time you sat in complete silence for 30 minutes without reaching for your phone? No podcast, no music, no scrolling. Just you and your thoughts. If you can't remember, you're not alone. And that's exactly the problem. There's a mass exodus happening right now, but it's silent. The most productive, creative, and intellectually rigorous people are quietly stepping back from social media. Not dramatically, not with a big announcement post. They're just fading away, and their lives are getting measurably better. I'm going to show you the psychological mechanisms that make social media so destructive to cognitive function. I'm going to explain why intelligence and social media use are becoming inversely correlated. And I'm going to give you the research that platforms have tried to bury. Let's start with what's actually happening in your brain when you scroll. Every time you pull down to refresh, every time you see a new notification, every time you post something and wait for reactions, your brain is getting a hit of dopamine. That's not a metaphor. That's literal neurochemistry. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It's what made our ancestors hunt, explore, and survive. But social media has hijacked this ancient system. Here's what most people don't understand. Dopamine doesn't make you happy. It makes you want, creates desire, craving, seeking behavior. And social media companies have spent billions of dollars engineering their platforms to trigger this response as efficiently as possible. The pull-to-refresh mechanism wasn't an accident. It's based on the same variable ratio reinforcement schedule that makes slot machines addictive. Sometimes you get a reward, sometimes you don't. Your brain never knows when the next hit is coming, so it keeps you checking, over and over and over. Former Facebook executives have admitted this publicly. Sean Parker, the first president of Facebook, said they were deliberately exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. His exact words were that it's all about consuming as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. Think about that. The goal isn't to make your life better. It's to consume your attention. Your attention is the product they're selling to advertisers, and they've gotten terrifyingly good at it. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Each check fragments your attention, destroys deep thinking, and trains your brain to crave distraction. Intelligent people are noticing something. They're noticing that their ability to think deeply is deteriorating. They're noticing that they can't read a book like they used to. They're noticing that their mind wanders constantly, always seeking the next hit of novelty. This is called continuous partial attention. Your brain is never fully present anywhere. It's always monitoring for the next notification, the next update, the next dopamine trigger. And this state is completely incompatible with the kind of thinking that produces original ideas, solves complex problems, or creates anything meaningful. Cal Newport, the computer scientist who wrote Deep Work, has studied this extensively. He found that the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task is becoming rare. And it's becoming the most valuable skill in the modern economy. The people who can still do deep work are pulling away from everyone else. They're producing better work, making more money, and having more creative breakthroughs. Meanwhile, everyone else is trapped in a cycle of shallow work and constant distraction. Here's the mechanism. Your brain has two modes: focused mode and diffuse mode. Focused mode is when you're actively concentrating on something. Diffuse mode is when your mind wanders and makes unexpected connections. Both are essential for creativity and problem solving. But social media creates a third mode, reactive mode. You're not focusing deeply on anything, but you're not truly letting your mind wander either. You're just responding to external stimuli, reacting to notifications, scrolling through feeds, jumping from one piece of content to the next. This reactive mode produces nothing of value. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't generate ideas. It just consumes time and depletes cognitive resources. Neuroscientist Dr. Daniel Levitin explains that every time you shift your attention from one thing to another, there's a cognitive switching cost. Your brain has to reload context, remember where you were, and suppress the previous task. This burns through glucose and mental energy. When you check your phone 96 times a day, you're forcing your brain to make 96 context switches. Each one weakens your ability to concentrate. Each one makes it harder to return to deep focus. You're essentially training yourself to be distracted. And here's where it gets really insidious. The more you use social media, the worse you become at the very things that made you want to use it in the first place. You join to stay connected with people, but the endless scrolling makes you feel more lonely and isolated. You wanted to stay informed, but the algorithmic feeds leave you with a fragmented, sensationalized view of the world. You wanted to express yourself, but the performance anxiety of posting turns authentic communication into curated personal branding. Intelligent people are recognizing this gap between intention and reality. They joined these platforms for one reason, and they're getting the opposite result. Let's talk about the loneliness paradox. In 2017, a University of Pennsylvania study had participants limit their social media use to 30 minutes per day. After 3 weeks, they reported significantly lower levels of loneliness and depression compared to the control group who used social media normally. Think about that. Less social media led to less loneliness. The platforms that promise to connect us are making us more isolated. Why? Because they're replacing real human connection with hollow simulacra. You're not having conversations. You're broadcasting into the void and waiting for little hearts and thumbs-up symbols. You're scrolling through highlight reels of other people's lives, comparing your behind-the-scenes to their greatest hits. Psychologist Sherry Tickle has documented this extensively. She found that even having a phone visible on the table during a conversation reduces the quality and depth of that conversation. We're becoming afraid of genuine human interaction because it's messy, unpredictable, and doesn't come with an edit button. Intelligent people are craving real connection again. Deep conversations, eye contact, the discomfort and beauty of being truly present with another human being. And they're realizing that social media is actively preventing that. Now let's address the information problem. You probably think you're staying informed by scrolling through your feeds. You're not. You're being fed an algorithmically curated stream of content designed to provoke engagement, not to inform you. The algorithm doesn't care about truth or nuance or context. It cares about keeping you scrolling. And what keeps people scrolling? Outrage, conflict, polarization, tribalism, moral panic. Jonathan Haidt's research on moral foundations theory shows that content that triggers moral emotions gets shared 6 times more than neutral content. The platforms have learned this. They amplify divisive content because it drives engagement. So your feed isn't showing you what's important or even what's true. It's showing you what will make you angry enough to comment, share, or argue. You're being fed a distorted version of reality engineered to keep you engaged. Intelligent people are noticing that they're becoming more anxious, more polarized, more certain about complex issues they don't actually understand. They're noticing that their worldview is being shaped by an algorithm designed by a 23-year-old engineer in Menlo Park who's optimizing for ad revenue. And they're opting out. Let's talk about cognitive load. Your brain has limited processing capacity. Every decision you make, every piece of information you consume, every choice you face depletes this capacity. Social media is an infinite stream of micro-decisions. Do I like this? Do I share this? Do I comment? Who do I follow? Who do I unfollow? What do I post? How do I respond to this comment? Each one seems trivial, but they add up. Decision fatigue is real. The more trivial decisions you make, the worse you become at important decisions. This is why Mark Zuckerberg wears the same outfit every day. He's preserving cognitive resources for decisions that actually matter. But he's built a platform that forces billions of people to make thousands of trivial decisions every single day. The irony is almost beautiful. Intelligent people are recognizing this. They're implementing what's called decision elimination. They're removing entire categories of choices from their lives. And social media is one of the easiest and highest impact eliminations they can make. When you delete the apps, you eliminate thousands of micro-decisions. You free up cognitive bandwidth. You can actually think about what matters instead of reacting to an endless stream of engineered stimuli. Now let's get to the deep work connection. Deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It's how books get written, companies get built, scientific breakthroughs happen, and anything meaningful gets created. Cal Newport argues that deep work is becoming simultaneously more rare and more valuable. As more people lose the ability to focus, those who retain it have an almost unfair advantage. But deep work requires something specific. It requires what Newport calls residue-free attention. When you're doing deep work, your full cognitive capacity needs to be allocated to the task. No part of your mind can be monitoring for notifications or thinking about what's happening on social media. Here's the problem. Even if you're not actively checking social media while you work, just knowing that it exists and that there might be notifications waiting creates attention residue. Part of your mind is always wondering what you're missing. Sophie Leroy's research on attention residue shows that when you switch from one task to another, your attention doesn't immediately follow. A residue of your attention remains stuck thinking about the original task. The more you care about the interrupted task, the stronger the residue. Now apply this to social media. If you're in the middle of writing something or solving a problem, and you take a quick break to check Instagram, you're not really taking a break. You're fragmenting your attention and leaving residue on whatever you just saw. When you return to your work, you're not bringing your full cognitive capacity. Part of your mind is still processing that Instagram content. You might not even be conscious of it, but it's there, degrading your performance. Intelligent people have figured this out. They've realized that you can't do deep work and use social media. The two are fundamentally incompatible. So they're choosing deep work and social media is getting cut. Let's talk about what happens when you actually quit. Not just reduce usage, not just take a break. Actually delete the apps and stop using the platforms. The first 72 hours are uncomfortable. You'll feel phantom vibrations. You'll unconsciously reach for your phone. You'll have moments of genuine anxiety about what you're missing. This is withdrawal. It's your brain demanding its dopamine hits. But if you push through, something remarkable happens. Around day 4 or 5, your mind starts to clear. You notice thoughts that aren't reactions to external stimuli. You have ideas that aren't prompted by something you just read. By week 2, you can read a book for an hour without your mind wandering. You can have a conversation without thinking about your phone. You start to remember what your own mind feels like when it's not being constantly hijacked. By week 4, you realize how much time you've reclaimed. The average person spends 2.5 hours per day on social media. That's 912 hours per year. That's 38 full days. More than a month of your life just gone with nothing to show for it. What could you do with an extra month? Learn a language, read 50 books, build a business, master a skill, actually connect with the people you love. Intelligent people are doing the math and realizing it doesn't add up. The cost is enormous. The benefit is negligible. The decision becomes obvious. Now I want to address the counterarguments. What about staying in touch with people? What about networking? What about missing out on opportunities? Here's the truth. The people who matter will stay in touch through real channels, text messages, phone calls, in-person meetings. If a relationship can't survive without Instagram likes, it wasn't a real relationship. And networking? The most valuable professional connections happen through deep work that produces visible results, not through LinkedIn engagement. Do great work, and opportunities find you. Scroll through feeds, and you're just another face in the crowd. As for missing out, you're already missing out. You're missing out on presence. You're missing out on deep focus. You're missing out on original thought. You're missing out on real human connection. You're missing out on the experience of being alive in the actual world instead of a digital simulation of it. The fear of missing out is the hook they use to keep you scrolling. But what you're actually missing is your own life. Let me tell you about the people who've made this shift. They're not suffering. They're thriving. They're more focused, more creative, more present, more productive, and genuinely happier. They read books again. They have hobbies that aren't content creation. They can sit in silence without discomfort. They have conversations that last hours instead of being interrupted every 3 minutes. They're building things that matter instead of broadcasting their lives to an audience of semi-strangers. And here's what really separates them. They're thinking for themselves again. They're not outsourcing their worldview to an algorithm. They're not letting their opinions be shaped by whatever moral outrage is trending. They're engaging with complex ideas on their own terms. This is what intelligence actually looks like. It's not about IQ scores or academic credentials. It's about clear thinking, deep focus, and the ability to resist manipulation. And social media is fundamentally incompatible with all three. The platforms know this. Internal documents from Facebook, leaked by whistleblower Frances Haugen, show that the company's own research found that Instagram makes 1 in 3 teenage girls feel worse about their bodies. They knew their platforms were harming mental health. They knew they were spreading misinformation. They knew they were radicalizing users. And they chose engagement over ethics every single time. You're not the customer. You're the product. Your attention, your data, your behavior, your relationships, your mental health, all of it is being monetized. And the people running these companies are optimizing for profit, not for your well-being. Intelligent people are recognizing this dynamic and refusing to participate. They're not being sold. They're taking back ownership of their attention, their time, and their minds. So what should you actually do? I'm not going to tell you to delete everything tomorrow. Cold turkey works for some people, but most need a more gradual approach. Start with this. Pick one day this week where you don't use social media at all. Not even once. Just one day. See how it feels. Notice the discomfort, but also notice the clarity. Next, remove social media apps from your phone. You can still access them through a browser if you absolutely need to, but removing the apps adds friction. That friction is enough to break the automatic habit loop. Then do an honest audit. For 1 week, track exactly how much time you spend on each platform and what you actually get from it. Not what you think you get, but what you actually get. Real connections? Useful information? Genuine enjoyment? Or just empty scrolling and mild anxiety? Most people are shocked when they see the numbers. Hours disappearing into feeds with nothing tangible in return. After the audit, start cutting. Delete the platforms that provide the least value. For most people, that's everything except maybe 1 or 2 that serve a specific, clearly defined purpose. And here's the key. Replace the habit with something better. You're not just removing social media. You're reclaiming time and attention for things that actually matter. Read that book that's been sitting on your shelf. Call a friend and have an actual conversation. Go for a walk without headphones. Learn to cook something complex. Build something with your hands. Sit in silence and let your mind wander. These activities might feel boring at first. That's because your dopamine system has been recalibrated to crave constant novelty. But give it time. Your brain will readjust, and you'll start to find genuine satisfaction in activities that don't come with notifications and likes. The intelligent people who've already made this shift will tell you the same thing. The first month is hard. The second month is liberating. By the third month, you can't imagine going back. You start to see people still trapped in the scroll, and you feel something between pity and relief. Pity because you remember what that trap feels like. Relief because you escaped. Your focus comes back. Your creativity returns. Your relationships deepen. Your anxiety decreases. Your productivity skyrockets. You have time. Real time. Time that's actually yours. This isn't about being anti-technology. This is about being pro-human. It's about recognizing that these platforms were designed to addict you and choosing not to be addicted. The smartest people you know have already figured this out. They've done the math. They've seen the research. They've felt the cognitive decline. And they've made the rational choice to opt out. The question is whether you're smart enough to join them. Your attention is the most valuable resource you have. It's more valuable than your money, because money can be replaced but time cannot. Every moment you spend scrolling is a moment you'll never get back. Social media companies are in the business of stealing that resource and selling it to advertisers. They've built trillion-dollar empires on the systematic harvesting of human attention. And they're very good at what they do. But you have a choice. You can keep feeding the machine or you can reclaim your mind. The intelligent people are choosing to reclaim. They're disappearing from the feeds. They're going dark. They're focusing on what actually matters. And their lives are measurably better for it. So here's my challenge to you. Try 1 week. Just 7 days without social media. No checking, no posting, no scrolling. See what happens to your mind. See what you notice. See what you create. See how you feel. I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll realize that everything you thought you needed from these platforms was an illusion. Connection, information, community, all of it is available in richer, deeper forms outside the algorithmic feed. The smartest people you know are disappearing. Now you know why. The question is whether you'll disappear with them or whether you'll keep scrolling while the world passes you by. Your move.